al-maut, to believe in the last day, which is being resurrected after death. So resurrection after death is a reality, it is true. And Allah Azza wa Jalla says, زَعَمَ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا أَلَّنْ يُبْعَثُوا قُلْ بَلَى وَرَبِّي لَتُبْعَثُنَّ ثُمَّ لَتُنَبَّؤُنَّ بِمَا عَمِلْتُمْ وَذَلِكَ عَلَى اللَّهِ يَسِيرٌ. So he says, those who disbelieve claim that they will never be resurrected. They will not be resurrected. They will not be raised. قُلْ بَلَى وَرَبِّي لَتَبْعَثُنَّ ثُمَّ لَتُنَبَّؤُنَّ بِمَا عَمِلْتُمْ. Say, by my Lord, certainly you will indeed be resurrected, and then you will be informed of that which you did. And that is easy for Allah. That is easy for Allah. And the people of disbelief know that this is true. They know that this is true. There are many observable signs that the Quran points to. The Quran tells us to look at the process of life and death and the regeneration of life and death. The earth is dead, barren, water descends and it brings the earth back to life, and then it is, teeming with life, with vegetation, with, this process. And then eventually when the season changes, the leaves turn yellow, it dies, and the life is gone. All right, and then this cycle, we see it every year, all the time. We see it year in, year out. We see the same cycle. This is one of the phenomena that Allah Azza wa Jal directs us to observe, to show that the resurrection is exactly the same. It's the same as this, exactly what you see here. Allah will resurrect man and bring him back to his full creation. Even the people of disbelief, when they do what they do, what they study in their laboratories, they look at how they can take a stem cell, and that simple stem cell can turn into an organ, or it can turn into cells of any type of organ: the liver, the kidneys, the heart, the brain. They understand, and they observe, and they see these things, that there is something magnificent in creation, that there's something there that where a simple cell can turn into a whole full grown man. It's a full grown man, right? And so if that's something that we see when women conceive and the baby grows for 9 months, and then they give birth to a full grown baby with all of the organs, with arms, with legs, with fingers, with nails, with the brain, with the heart, with the liver, with the spleen, with the stomach and everything. And that came from, what did it come from? Right. This shows the plausibility of man being resurrected, because he was nothing, then he came to be. He was nothing, he came to be. Right? So all of us, before we were born, we were nothing. We were literally nothing. We weren't there. And then we came to be. And so in the same way, Allah Azza wa Jal can resurrect mankind. And as is mentioned in some of the ahadith, that in the tail, in the bone at the back, right at the very bottom, there's a small, tiny speck, or something there, out of which Allah will resurrect all of mankind. Right? So this is easy for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala if we can directly see the fact that out of a tiny little speck of a little cell which the male emits, out of which Allah creates the male and the female. If that's possible, then the resurrection is equally the same. There's no difference. So belief in the last day, which is belief in the resurrection after death. That's what that means. The last day, it means resurrection after death, when everybody will be called to account for their deeds, and there will either be reward or punishment. And this is the essence of justice, right? This is why there is absolute justice. If there wasn't a last day, if there wasn't accountability, if there wasn't reward, if there wasn't punishment, then really there wouldn't be any justice. Like in the life of this world, we see so many criminals from the people of disbelief, getting away with, so much evil. And likewise, injustices that take place, even between Muslims. The final day indicates that there is a notion of absolute justice, and that justice will absolutely be established, if not in the life of this world, in the life of the hereafter. And that's one of the reasons why the people of Iman, the people who believe in Allah and believe in the 6 pillars of Iman, that they know with certainty that any and all injustice will be addressed in the hereafter. And that's why in the life of this world, even if they have been wronged, if they have been dealt with unjustly, if they have been harmed in any way, whether that might be through violation of honor, violation of taking of blood, violation of wealth, or whatever it might be, that they have absolute conviction that justice will be established in the hereafter. And that's why the people of Iman, this is one of the many reasons why they do not despair, and they have patience, and they have firm resolve, unlike the people of disbelief. Now, the people of disbelief don't believe in the hereafter, and they have different notions, different ideas. So amongst them are, for example, those like the Hindus and other than them, right? So they just have the idea of reincarnation, right? That's their notion of justice. So in the next life, you might end up being a cat or a dog, or a flea or something because of the way you lived in this life, right? That's their notion of justice. There are others who, so I mean, we don't need to divert. They have different ideas of like the atheists have no notion of justice in the hereafter. That means anything goes. There is no reason to be moral. There's no reason to be just. Anything goes. It's, Darwinian evolution. It's the law of the jungle. Whoever has the might, he is right. So, and that's how these people tend to operate. So, there's no justice. You can say to an atheist, say, if I lined you up and 10 of you atheists and, took your lives, would that be unjust in any way? Would that be, why is that wrong? How is that wrong? Explain to me why it would be wrong to do that to you. They wouldn't be able to give any answer because they don't believe in resurrection, they don't believe in the hereafter, and it wouldn't be actually wrong in the life of this world. So you have no argument to argue back. So if there isn't a hereafter, then the notion of justice, the fact that there is a Lord, a Creator, a Maker, who is Al-Adal, who is Al-Hakam, the one who is the most just, the one who is the most wise, the one who will judge between the people, then the whole notion of justice then it kind of goes. And that's one of the proofs for Allah's existence. There absolutely must be a Lord, a Maker, and there absolutely must be a resurrection and an accounting. Otherwise, in this life, the notion of justice can't really exist. Like, if we know that we won't be held accountable, then that's fine. I can come along and I can steal your wealth and, kill that person, take his property, take that property. And this is how those people who do not believe in Allah and do not believe in the last day, they are the ones who cause the greatest corruption upon the earth, because that's how they operate, right? Whether it's individuals, or whether it's rulers or emperors or tyrants or governments, this is how they operate, like this, that there's no resurrection. So they throw their weight around and they, so belief, wal-imanu bil-yawm al-akhir, belief in the last day, which is al-ba'thu ba'da al-maut, that you will be resurrected after death. That is easy for Allah, and you will be called to account. Thereafter, there is belief in the last pillar, we believe in وَنُؤْمِنُ بِالْقَدَرِ خَيْرِهِ وَشَرِّهِ, that we believe in al-qadr, its good and its evil. What does this mean? This means that all of the actions of the servants, their motion and their rest, all of their actions, that they are written. Allah has prior knowledge of the actions of all of the servants, and they are written with Allah. Allah has written them in the preserved tablet, Al-Lawhul Mahfuz. And Allah knows already those who will be successful, those who will be happy in the hereafter, and those who will be wretched. And every Muslim must believe in this, that Allah has prior knowledge of all things, and that He has written down all of these things. They are in a register, and Allah has written for everyone from the offspring of Adam alayhi salam, has written, his the bounties he's going to receive, the calamities he's going to suffer, that are going to come his way, the good and the evil that will come to him, all of his movements and motions and moments of rest and so on and so forth, every speech, every instance of eating, every instance of drinking something, everything that he will do, that will happen to him in his life, in his days, in his hours, in his moments, all of that is written with Allah. Right? That a person has absolute conviction that all of that is written with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And likewise, when death comes to him, that death will be at a specified, appointed time that is also written and known to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. All that will come afterwards is the accounting, the reckoning. And a person cannot be a believer, you cannot be a believer except by believing in al-qadr. If you deny al-qadr, you cannot be a believer. And Allah Azza wa Jalla, He said clearly in the Quran, Inna kulla shay'in khalaqnahu biqadr. Indeed, every single thing we have created with measure, with qadr, with measure. So al-qadr then is, we will look at this in more detail later insha'Allah ta'ala. But al-qadr basically is that Allah has prior knowledge. Allah has all-encompassing knowledge. He has prior knowledge of all things. That knowledge has been written down, as in everything that is to happen in this creation is written down, which includes the actions of the servants, the good and the bad. All of that is written down. This in no way does it mean that Allah has forced you to do anything. Allah hasn't forced you to do anything. This in no way does it mean that Allah is unjust when He punishes or rewards, because Allah Azza wa Jal, He created all of those that were going to be created, and He gave them the opportunity to act. And He sent them books and the messengers to show them the right way from the wrong way. Then the servants choose to act by way of the faculties, the hearing, the seeing, the feeling, the reflection, right? So they have irada, they have a will, they have qudra, they have the power, ability, they choose, they act. Allah gave them guidance, this is the right way, that's the wrong way. Choose guidance over misguidance. Now it's for the servants to act. And then the servants act. Right? Just because Allah has prior knowledge of the actions of His servants does not mean that they are forced to do what they do, nor does it mean that Allah is unjust by rewarding or punishing them, because they are rewarded and punished on the basis of their actions, not on the basis of Allah's prior knowledge. Do you understand? Right? So it's not that Allah already knows that so-and-so person is a person of the hellfire, which means that obviously he will be in hellfire, but it's not because of Allah's knowledge of that alone. It is because Allah created that soul, gave him the faculties of hearing, seeing, knowledge, reflection. He sent them books and messengers that said that this is the way of truth and salvation, and this is the way of corruption, falsehood, evil, follow this and avoid this, right? Then that person is free to choose which path he wants to follow, and he chooses whatever path he chose freely without any compulsion, and he will be judged on the basis of his actions, not on the basis of Allah's prior knowledge, right? It will be his actions that he will be held accountable for that will determine, will be the sabab among the other asbab as to why he will enter paradise, right? So there's no injustice in any of this. This is a topic in which many people went astray, previous nations as well, from the Jews, from the Christians, because they delved into this too deeply, too philosophically, and they failed to understand that there's no contradiction between Allah having prior knowledge and Allah creating the actions of the servants, no contradiction between that, and Allah rewarding and punishing the servants, right? There's no contradiction between those two things, but they delved too heavily and too philosophically, and they became confused, and so the Christians made the mistakes, the Jews made the mistakes. Likewise, within this Muslim nation, there were people who followed in that same way, the Mu'tazila, the Qadariyya, and other than them, they also went astray, right? So in essence, believing in Al-Qadr is the sixth pillar of Iman. You cannot be a Muslim without belief in Al-Qadr. And belief in Al-Qadr simply means you believe Allah has prior knowledge of all things, general and specific. General and specific. Not just general like some people say. Allah has general knowledge of all things, but He doesn't have specific knowledge of specific things. Allah knows there are men, but He doesn't know that there's Abdullah and Zayd. But He knows there's men. Right? So Allah knows the universals, He doesn't know the specifics. This is false. This is a lie. Allah knows all things, every single thing. He has prior knowledge of all things, events, actions, motion, rest, every instance of a leaf dropping, everything. All of that is written down in a preserved tablet. Then, whenever that thing is decreed to happen, Allah wills it for it to happen, and through His creative power, it comes to be. It comes to be. Right? So this is what we believe with respect to Al-Qadr. So that brings us to the end of that question. And the next question, number 42, ما دليلها من الكتاب جملة? What is the evidence from the Quran, from the book, for these 6 pillars in a general sense? Now this is an answer we've already answered in the answer to the previous questions, and we've listened to the ayat in the Quran. The Shaykh Hafiz al-Hakami says the answer, meaning what is the evidence that these 6 pillars are mentioned in the Quran? Well, it is that ayah we mentioned from Surah Al-Baqarah. ليس البر أن تولوا وجوهكم قبل المشرق والمغرب ولكن البر من آمن بالله واليوم الآخر والملائكة والكتاب والنبيين. Right? It is not righteousness that you turn your faces to the east or to the west, but it is righteousness for the one who believes in Allah, the last day, the angels, the books and the prophets. And likewise the statement of Allah, إِنَّا كُلَّ شَيْءٍ خَلَقَنَاهُ بِقَدَرٍ. Indeed, everything we created with al-qadr. With al-qadr. So here we can see very clearly all 6 pillars of Iman mentioned clearly in the Quran. In the Quran. So this moves us to question number 43, and so this is now where we start going in detail into each of the 6 pillars of Iman. The first one is ما معنى الإيمان بالله عز وجل. What is the meaning of believing in Allah Azza wa Jal? Believing in Allah Azza wa Jal. The answer to this question from Shaykh Hafiz rahimullah He says, هو التصديق الجازم من صميم القلب بوجود ذاته تعالى الذي لم يسبق بضد ولم يعقب به. Right? So believe, what is the meaning to believe in Allah? To have iman in Allah. It means to have a firm, resolute belief from the innermost recess of the heart, from the innermost part of the heart, in the existence of Allah, of Allah's essence, that Allah exists, the exalted, and that He was not preceded, by its opposite, meaning non-existence. Allah was never preceded by non-existence. I mean, He is eternal. He is the only eternal being. And that He will not be followed by non-existence. So He is eternal, without beginning and without end. To have a firm belief in a being, which is Allah, that is without beginning and without end. That Allah is huwa al-awwal falaysa qablahu shay, that Allah is the first before whom there is nothing. Wal-akhir falaysa ba'duhu shay, and He is the last after whom there is nothing. Wal-zahir falaysa fawqahu shay, and He is the uppermost, above whom there is nothing. And He is al-batin wal-batin falaysa dunahu shay, and He is the closest, or the innermost, the closest, meaning that He is the nearest to all things, meaning in the sense of his knowledge, right? So Allah is nearer to you than you are to yourself, in the sense that Allah knows everything about you, and there's nothing hidden from Allah about you, right? So this is what is meant, فَلَيْسَ دُونَهُ شَيْءٍ. What is not meant here, that Allah is in everything, right? This is the belief of the people of the unity of existence, the extreme Sufis, and like a pantheistic type of belief that Allah is everything and in everything. This is not what is meant, right? This is not the right interpretation. So He is al-batin, فَلَيْسَ دُونَهُ شَيْءٍ, حَيٌّ قَيُّومٌ أَحَدٌ صَمَدٌ. And there are four important names from the great names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that Allah is Hayy, the ever living, Al-Hayy, that He's living, right? He never dies. Qayyum, that He is the sustainer of everything else, and He Himself is not sustained by anyone besides Him, right? He is the self-sustaining master of all other things. Qayyum, right? Qayyum meaning the one who upholds everything, the creation, the heavens, the earth, everything. It stands and exists and persists because Allah is Qayyum. Hayyun, Qayyum. These are two mighty names of Allah that occur in Ayatul Kursi. And Ahadun Samad. Allah is Ahad, uniquely one. In His names, His attributes, His essence, His right to worship in His lordship. And He is Samad. Samad meaning, there are various interpretations, but one of them is the one who has perfection in all of His attributes. He is perfect in His knowledge, perfect in His wisdom, perfect in His hearing, perfect in His seeing, perfect in all of His attributes. And no one else is like that. So look at these four names. They give us knowledge about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then the Shaykh mentions the lam yalid wa lam yulad wa lam yakul lahu kufuwan ahad, that He was neither he neither begot nor was He begotten, and there is nothing which is an equal to Him, right? So in this paragraph, the Shaykh has explained to us what is belief, what is Iman in Allah. This is the being that we believe in. Right? This is Allah, a being who is eternal, without beginning, without end. He is the first, before whom there is none, the last, after whom there is none, the uppermost, above whom there is none, the closest to everything in terms of his knowledge and so on and so forth. And he is ever living, Hayyun Qayyum Ahad Samad, and he is not, does not beget. He does not beget. He does not give birth to anything, unlike what the Christians say, or others say, that he gives birth to angels, or like the pagans, polytheists say. Nor is he begotten. Right? He's not begotten. He cannot be begotten, unlike what the Christians say. That's false as well. And he has no equal to him at all. This summarizes the essence of belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is Shaykh Hafidh al-Hakami's explanation. We will comment upon that inshallah ta'ala from the speech of Shaykh Ibn Uthaymeen rahimahullah in the next lesson. So we leave that for the next lesson inshallah. We'll end our lesson here today. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen wa sallallahu ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in.